Welcome back, listeners. Ready for another deep dive with me?
Always excited to dig into something new. What do we got today?
Well, this time we're going way back in time, but you'll see how it all connects to some pretty modern stories.
Oh, I like where this is going already. Lay it on me.
We're talking about the one and only Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. Have you read it?
Of course, multiple times. It's like literary comfort food for the soul.
I know what you mean. It's one of those books that just stays with you,
Mm.
and it's had such a huge influence on, well, pretty much everything that came after it.
Yeah, you can't really talk about Gothic romance or even just like intense love stories without acknowledging the impact of Wuthering Heights.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today. How did Wuthering Heights become like this blueprint for storytelling?
Oh, I'm ready.
We'll be tracing its themes, its mood, its characters, all the way through to works like, the film Crimson Peak, Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, and tons more.
I am so there for this. Wuthering Heights is like the gift that keeps on giving.
Okay, so Wuthering Heights. Let's start with the obvious. This is a book that's full of passionate, even like overwhelmingly strong emotions.
Yeah, like right from the start, you get that sense of these characters being swept away by their feelings. They're not messing around.
No kidding. You've got this tangled love triangle, this wild, almost savage setting up on the Yorkshire moors. And there's this undercurrent of revenge that just drives everything forward.
It's Bronte's ability to capture that rawness, that almost primal energy that makes it so captivating. She's not afraid to show the darkness, the destructive potential of these intense emotions.
So true. You're not exactly getting a cozy Hallmark romance here.
Nope. This is love, but it's also obsession, it's heartbreak, and it's violence. And it's all tied to this landscape that feels almost as alive as the characters themselves.
And that's what I find so fascinating about Wuthering Heights. It's like, okay, on the surface, we have this dramatic love story, right? But there's something deeper going on.
It's the way Bronte tells it. She doesn't give you a simple love story. She throws you into this whirlwind of different perspectives. You've got the unreliable narrators like Lockwood and Nellie Dean. It's like trying to piece together a puzzle where the pieces don't quite fit.
Right, and that fragmented style, that sense of mystery and unease, it keeps you on the edge of your seat. You're never quite sure who to believe or what's really going on.
And that complexity, that psychological depth, that's what makes Wuthering Heights such a touchstone. It's not just the plot, it's how Bronte gets inside the minds of these characters and makes you question everything.
And you can see that same psychological complexity, that darkness, reflected in later works that were inspired by Wuthering Heights, like take the film Crimson Peak, for instance.
Oh yeah, Guillermo del Toro is definitely channeling some serious Bronte vibes in that one. It's like Wuthering Heights, but with, more ghosts and even more stunning visuals.
Totally.
Hmm.
But it's not just the Gothic atmosphere that connects them. Both Crimson Peak and Wuthering Heights deal with these really complicated relationships, that blurred line between love and obsession.
Right, you've got these passionate, almost destructive love affairs at the heart of both stories, and they're both set in these incredibly evocative locations that kind of reflect the characters' inner turmoil. The decaying mansion in Crimson Peak is almost like the character itself, just like the wild, unforgiving moors in Wuthering Heights.
I remember watching Crimson Peak and just being struck by that feeling of being trapped. Like the characters were suffocating under the weight of the house, the family secrets, the past.
And that sense of entrapment, that's another key element that links back to Wuthering Heights and forward to other Gothic tales like Rebecca. Think about Manderley, that imposing estate that dominates the entire story.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The second Mrs. De Winter is practically haunted by the memory of Rebecca, always feeling like she's living in her shadow. And the house itself is almost like a prison, keeping her bound to the past.
Exactly. And you see that same motif of the house as a symbol in Wuthering Heights. Those dark, claustrophobic interiors at Wuthering Heights, they reflect the emotional turmoil of the characters. It's like the setting itself is mirroring their feelings of being trapped and tormented.
So we see that Wuthering Heights' influence goes way beyond just plot points or character types.
Right.
Bronte's innovative use of setting, that sense of place, really set the stage for a whole genre of storytelling.
Totally. And she didn't just shape the way stories look and feel, she also had a huge impact on how love is portrayed. Because let's be real, the love in Wuthering Heights is not exactly your typical romance novel stuff.
It's intense,
Ugh.
but also kind of messed up.
Right. Absolutely. Bronte presents love as this incredibly powerful force. It can be beautiful, sure, but it can also be incredibly destructive. Catherine and Heathcliff's relationship is the perfect example. It's passionate, it's all-consuming, but it's also toxic, and it ultimately leads to tragedy for everyone involved.
And I think that's what makes Wuthering Heights so enduring. It's honest about the complexities of love. It doesn't shy away from the dark side.
Exactly. And that's a legacy that you see in so many modern stories. We're still fascinated by these tales of love and obsession, of relationships that are both passionate and destructive.
I'm thinking about, like, all those psychological thrillers where you're never quite sure if the characters are truly in love or just playing some kind of twisted game with each other. It feels like Wuthering Heights opened the door for that kind of exploration.
I totally agree. Brontë challenged the traditional romantic narrative. She gave us permission to question the happily ever after and to delve into the messy, complicated realities of human relationships. And that's something that we're still grappling with in storytelling today.
And it all started with this one wild, windswept book written centuries ago. It's incredible to think about how much of an impact Wuthering Heights has had on literature, film, even our understanding of love itself.
It really is. And it goes to show that a truly great work of art, like Wuthering Heights, it transcends time. It speaks to something universal about the human experience. And that's why we're still drawn to these stories of love, loss, and the enduring power of the past.
So much to think about. And that is exactly what we hope you'll do. Whether you revisit Wuthering Heights, watch Crimson Peak, or dive into Rebecca, we hope you'll keep those themes in mind.
And think about those big questions Brontë raises. What does it mean to truly love someone? What happens when passion turns into obsession? And can we ever truly escape the shadows of the past?
And with that, dear listeners, we've reached the end of another deep dive.
Until next time, keep those pages turning and those screens glowing.
And remember, even in the darkest of tales, there's always something to learn, something to discuss, and something to connect with. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.